Business Heartprints. This is a new episode for everyone who is watching live, and for everyone who is watching the recording on YouTube. So basically what we are doing here, we are empowering professionals with heart-based scaling strategies. And we have three hosts today. So it's me. My name is Anya Gibert. I'm an HR disruptor and a huge advocate for heart energy in the business world. And we have Jeremy Barr. He's a VC investor, also tech expert and coach, mentor. And he's on a mission to positively impact 3 billion people. And today co-host is Tracy Clark. Tracy is an awarded executive coach, former managing director, and a visionary advocate for founders who dare to challenge status quo. So with 8-figure exit and her 25 plus years of leadership experience, her insight into team dynamics and skyrocketing business, it's really invaluable. So I'm really, really happy to welcome you, Tracy.
Thank you, firstly, for inviting me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Great. So today we're going to dive into self-awareness tools. Yeah. Tracy, you are an expert for this kind of tool, especially for Enneagram. So I'm just gonna give you the stage, and you can present what you are doing and why is it so important also for founders, for professional, and for business world in general.
Brilliant, thank you. I mean, if I start really, I look at the importance of self-awareness for all leaders. Now, I work with visionary founders. And I love this study that I came across a few years ago that talked about 60,000 leaders who were in a study on self-awareness. And they were asked whether they thought they were self-aware. And 80% thought they were. Now, I want you to just guess in the chat, what percentage of these 60,000 do you think actually were self-aware? Let's have some guesses. So 80% thought they were. What's the guesses of the amounts? I can't see the chat. Or just shout out. Oh, nice one. 15%, 20%. Yeah, the answer is 15%. So Brian, you were spot on. And I found that just really shocking. And I think that, as leaders, we need to understand the impact we have. Because when we have a positive impact, then we're going to unlock the potential of our team. But if we have these blind spots and maybe some characteristics such as intimidation, you're unwittingly going to shut down your team. You're going to become what I term a diminisher. And therefore, you're just extracting and expanding about 30 to 40% of the potential of your team. Now, so I became really fascinated and I thought, okay, in my toolkit, I need a really powerful tool that's going to help my founders to increase this self-awareness so that they can empower their teams and also so that they can connect with their market and investors in the most effective way. So I did a bit of, research into the different ones. And for me, the Enneagram just came out top by a long way. And my reason for choosing it was the following. It doesn't just look at what you do, it looks at why you do what you do. So it's the depth of the Enneagram that is absolutely transformational. So when people take the questionnaire, they get this report that shows that they align with one of the 9 types. And then they get a full report, which I then debrief with them. And we're looking at motivation, we're looking at thinking styles, feeling styles, action styles. We're getting them to understand and just connect to what their core fears might be, what their view of the world might be, and what the gift is that they bring to the world. And what this process does is it enables them to just understand themselves. And, you know, I have a client after client that just said to me when they read the report, oh my goodness, it is freaky. That is me. That is me to a T. And I had another lady that said, wow, they've put into words what I've never been able to express about myself. And the liberating thing with the Enneagram, which I think is one of the distinguishing features, is that it doesn't box you. So I feel that a lot of the other ones say, this is your type, and a little bit tough, that's who you are. The Enneagram's approach is very much, we're all here to grow. We've all got potential. And what we're doing is we're charting patterns of growth. Now, what I can do is just share with you, I can share with you a summary report that gives you an idea. So here we've got an example of the Enneagram circle on the right with the nine different types. And the client will get the report that tells them, in this case, all about the one. They are the strict perfectionist. But what I get the breakdown, which shows the nuances. We're never just one number. And this is what I like. It helps people get themselves out of the box they've been putting themselves in. And it enables us to chart a journey of development, a journey of growth. So we look at in three ways initially. What we're looking at is saying there are always better versions and not so good versions of each number. So I'm exploring with them, how do we become the best version, in this case, of a strict perfectionist? Then we're saying, you know, there are not 8 other ways that we can impact, and that actually, if we embrace, we can then become a more impactful, more empowering leader. And initially, we'll look at what I call the wings. So in this case, the number 2 and the number 9, and we'll see, well, how do they register on this one? So the 2 and the 9s are the one next door. Well, they're the 3rd and 4th highest. So we could explore, how can we tap into those a little bit more? But then you'll notice that in the center of the circle, there are all sorts of lines. And those lines, so each number has 2 lines coming from it. And when we go along the lines, we go on a journey of revolutionary growth. And that's what I think is exciting. So in this case, the line is from the 1 to the 4 and the 1 to the 7. And the 4 happens coincidentally to be this sample person's lowest one. So as I say, what I love about it is the depth, the insights. It's helping you look at chart patterns of growth. And I think for a leader, it's just absolutely transformational to see, well, where are my blind spots? And what areas might I not be focusing on? So that's in a nutshell really why I use it, because of its depth. It enables us to get into the subconscious very, very quickly. It enables us with the right questions to unlock a level of insight that is really, really, really transformational. And as I said, it's just nuanced. I mean, the big report, the pro report, I think is about 80 pages. So you can imagine the depth that it goes into. And so I use it first with the founder, with the leader, and we're looking at, how do we grow? How do we always optimize and become that best version of ourselves? And then what I've also used it for is, I then work with senior leadership teams that report into the founder, and we roll this out individually for each of them. And I give a debrief for each of them where, again, they get these breakthroughs and, oh my goodness, and blind spots. There's one in particular, that the number 8 is the active controller. And one of the blind spots is, you might come over as intimidating. And I've had 2 clients in particular that have said to me, oh, that's definitely not me, Tracy. I mean, definitely not. I'm like, well, just remember it's blind spot for a reason. And you see their face drop as they go, oh my goodness, do you think that's how I come across? I say, well, maybe. And actually, you see, if we think energetically, Anya, I can see that they're really distressed because they have no idea that they might be having this impact. So it works on that level. So as I say, we're working on individual self-awareness first. Then what I do, this can be put into a team report. I then gather the team. We share our individual reports and insights with the aim of getting everyone to understand each other more, understand the motivations, understand their fears, understand their triggers, and understand the way we can communicate with them to be as impactful as we can. And again, light bulb moments, people going, oh my goodness, I now realize why I don't get on with that person. But actually, if I shift my perspective and look at it from their shoes, I can tailor my communication. And this deepening of understanding between people builds trust. And I'm a big advocate of doing everything we can to build trust. So individual self-awareness, awareness of others. And then what we do is we get the team Enneagram and we start to look at how are we showing up as a team? Where are our strengths and where are our blind spots? So an example I can give you is I have a client who was going through an acquisition, and they came out as a very strongly competitive achiever team, very high 3 with lots of action, and then their second ones were the 8 of the active controller, and they were serious action takers and wanting to be the best. But then I noticed in the pattern that their considerate helper and their ones that connect to the people were very low. Now, this group of, don't get me wrong, they're very caring, but because they're so competitive, they sometimes overlook the people element. I said to them, you want to smash all the targets in order to get your earn out. But what do we see? We see that there's a risk of you overlooking the impact this merger might have on your team. What's the impact of that? They might leave. What's the impact of that? That might affect your targets. And they were shocked. And then as a result of that, now they've hired someone else in to really help bolster that side. So it helps you make commercial decisions. It helps you improve the culture of your team. And I, Anya, overlayer this with a model that I have that's called multiplier leadership, which is all designed to extract and expand the potential of the team. So I'm constantly overlayering these. So I as you can see, I love it. It helps with culture. It helps with, effectiveness, impact, relationship building, trust, and just that personal growth. And I see also when founders offer it to their teams, they're really excited and they feel cared for, and then together they can chart personal growth journeys, and the managers can understand and the leaders can understand how to manage their direct reports in the most effective way. So I can talk about it for hours.
Yes, thank you very much. I mean, it definitely is a powerful tool. Just a fun fact, I mentioned to you before, Tracy, that one of my first, I think it's actually really first article that I posted, I don't know, years ago, like when I started my LinkedIn, it was about Enneagram, because back then I took the questionnaire. I mean, I answered the questions, and the results were like really, really amazing. I think it was number 7 about revolutionary something.
And enthusiastic visionary. Now that
yeah, exactly. So yeah, definitely it's a powerful tool, and like I say, that all the answers really are within. We just need to know how to get them. So thanks, Tracy. Now, Jeremy,
add one more thing, because one of the things that I really talk about a lot is that leadership starts with self, and it's really about going inside. And this is the tool that I find powerful to enable you to understand where you're at now. And then I do a lot around identity. What's the identity of the person who's achieved your goal? And then we're looking at where the gaps are. But it all starts with us. And that's why, these tools are so amazing.
I completely agree. Like, if you are not able to lead yourself, how will you be able to lead others, So thanks. Yeah, we're gonna get back to this. Jeremy, what would you say about this self-awareness tool? So from VC perspective, like, how does founders' mindset impact your decision, to invest in some company or startup?
Yeah, so I've been at the pre-revenue 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 40 million, 65 million, 1.4 billion. I've managed teams and teams of people, and through all that, I've seen great founders and great products, but I've still seen a lot of it break down when you have ICs talking to ICs and managers talking to ICs. I do a lot of mentoring of CEOs globally right now. I got off a call with somebody this morning who had a $20 million business and it crashed. Product was great, and founder was great. He's actually really great, but the communication between his employee and people actually having the self-awareness of their kind of like Enneagram types or whatever, right? Enneagram is just a tool, but there's a lot of different ways to identify: are you a visionary? Are you a creative? Are you a perfectionist? How do you communicate with other people? How do you experience things? How are you being triggered by somebody else? These are things that actually destroy companies. And so when I look with my VC investor lens to invest in a company, I actually have to look at how is that founder going to be aware of themselves, and how are they going to transfer that self-awareness to the rest of their teams, to having each of the team members understand this is my Enneagram type, or without that tool, right? Like, I'm a visionary versus I'm a this, like that, right? When you're talking one person that maybe is more perfectionist to maybe somebody who's more creative, and maybe those can be opposites in some cases, we want to be able to know that we need to be talked differently. In the first 60 to 120 seconds of every conversation, we should be able to ask questions of other people, listen and assess what type of person is this in whatever way that we want to say it. And we obviously have to know that there might be probabilities of this, and we want it's not going to be specific, right? Not everybody's going to fit into 9 types, 12 types, 16 types, etc. But you're going to get a general gist, and even that general gist, it's super helpful, because a lot of times people are just going out in their day and saying, this is who I am, and they're thinking about their problems, and they're thinking about them, and they're not thinking about who's in front of them. In the first 60 seconds to 120 seconds of conversation, we should really be reading reading their eye contact, body language, tone of voice, micro expressions. We should be listening and asking questions about them and understanding who they are, and then applying it to that. So a lot of my interviews even too, or even a lot of my partner calls, since I do partner calls all day, every day, 300 people a month I'm meeting. I'm just on Zoom call after Zoom call after Zoom call. And I always start with people talking first. I always start with listening first, so then I can assess, so that I don't just come in with whatever it is, right? We want to get that context when we're getting into a conversation and asking them, how's your day going, right? I'm always asking the first question, even when I'm doing one-on-ones with my team, right? Like, I'm asking them just, how's your day going, right? Like, I want to understand if they just had a breakup today, if they had a bad product today, if they had a really exciting today, that's going to set the context for how we're starting this conversation. So how is your day going? And then I kind of jump into, how's your week going? And then we get into what's on your mind, and what are your thoughts, what are your focuses? And then maybe then I'll say something about the agenda, right? So we want to start with listening, absorbing information, so that we can make a prescriptive conversation or prescriptive advice. So being self-aware of how you were created through your traumas and experiences, and how you get interacted with people. What words are your trigger words? Have you written down your trigger words? Have you written down your trigger situations? Have you written down your type, whether you're a visionary or not? How many minutes a day do you want to spend in your analytical mindset versus your creative mindset versus meditation? And how do other people, and how much time can they handle being around a perfectionist or somebody who's very specific with their conversation? And do they need a 15-minute break afterwards? So this self-awareness is really important in terms of my investment criteria and my founder leadership mentoring, because I've seen many companies at large scale fail just because of the human element. It's part of the thesis behind a lot of what I do is the human element. A great founder is a great leader. A great leader is a great human, and a really well-rounded human is one of the most rare assets in the world. It's really important. So being able to talk to a lot of different people, I advise founders and leaders and really any high ambition human to just go talk to a lot of different people, so you can become a well-rounded human, so you can know how to play with your masculine and feminine ratio. I can talk faster, I can talk slower, depending on who the audience is. I can watch the eye contact, body language, tone of voice, micro expressions of everybody on a call to see who's Tracy and who's not. I know how to slow down, and I know, because based on the smiles of you guys responding to me, that I can keep going fast in these conversations, right? When you talk to people second by second and adjust who you're talking to, you can get a lot further, right? So we want to be able to become adaptable, like a chameleon, to everybody that we talk to talk to people of different ages, genders, politics, cultures, countries, everything. I talk to 8 different countries a day, all different types of people, different ages, different education level, different income levels. And this is what makes you a better, more well-rounded person, founder, or leader. And this is the investable portion. Because if I were to make any sort of investable decision based on a product, it wouldn't be a rigorous decision, because investment is usually going to be 3, 5, and 10-year timelines in terms of when an investor gets their return back. Usually it's 5 to 10 on VC timelines. A lot of times lately it's been going to 3. And specifically in that timeline, you need to move the company fast. You're trying to get that 10x or 100x growth, as opposed to a 2 or 3x that an angel might want. A VC wants the 10x to 100x. And in that, you need really fluid conversations with everybody. So understanding everybody and being able to be dynamic, being that chameleon with each person is really going to be the underpinning part. A founder, if we were to make that rigorous decision on a product, that you're just going to change that product. Products are going to mutate based on your team mutating the product, and based on customer feedback, and based on market. So I wouldn't be able to make a rigorous investor decision based on a product or a product lineup that's going to change over time. So the rigorous investment decision then is based on the founder and or the leaders in that company, and that comes from their ability to be a bit of a gravity ball to pulling other people into them. They could have great sales skills, they could have great engineering skills, and that's going to be dwarfed when they have 5 people or 10 people or 100 people on their team or 1,000 people on their team. So even diving into their skills as investable isn't investable. What is investable is their actual ability to be a gravity ball to pull in other people to them. When they can pull in other C-suites, other founders, other products, other whatever, into their team, that's really what's going to make a great team. And that's investable over the long term, is their ability to be a gravity ball. And that gravity ball comes from this self-awareness. So it's really, really important. And self-awareness comes from listening and asking questions.
Okay, great. A lot of information. Yeah, I just wrote down, like, is it possible, like, can you name like few red flags or of a company's leadership or team that practically they show, that their level of self-awareness is low, that is not really high? What are you, for example, focused on? You already mentioned a few, but if you can maybe name a few more.
Listening, and all the ways that you see listening. So when I start a conversation, I can usually know if somebody's a listener in the first 3 to 5 seconds based on their eye movements. If they have listening eyes. When you get on a call and somebody's in their head, they're kind of like looking around and they're thinking about and they're not listening, right? If you want to have a really good conversation, you need to know that this person is listening. And so they would know to be looking at you, because they need to be ingesting all of your micro expressions and your tone of voice and your words and everything. So they need to be looking. So in the first 3 to 5 seconds of a conversation, if somebody's not looking at you and it's a one-on-one conversation, then and that's even over Zoom, right? One-on-one over Zoom. You know that's an issue right off the bat. People cutting you off by half a second when people are pitching me and cutting me off by half a second, or even just in team settings, they cut you off by half a second. They're going off on their own train of thought. They're not listening to what you said. They're literally not able to hear what you're saying, and that makes them uninvestable. When they cut me off by half a second, I don't need the attention, but I know they're not listening to me, which means they're not going to listen to other investors or other employees or other customers, and that fails to be investment. So all they have to do is cut me off by half a second, and they are now uninvestable. So cutting somebody off is a red flag. I still advise on a lot of companies, and jump into their stand-ups sometimes. And I see people cutting people off and in those stand-ups, and I have to tell people, like, we don't do that. That's going to destroy the company, even if you guys have a great product. So it's going to play on other people's insecurities. I've managed teams people where somebody comes to me afterwards, and I'm the manager in that case, and they'd come to me and say, so-and-so cut me off, and then I have to go to the other person in a one-on-one and say, hey, we don't cut people off. It makes them feel like you don't care about their opinion at all, right? And that's going to destroy the company. So people cutting each other off is bad, is really bad, and is red flag. People not listening, and we want to be able to see people listening in terms of with their ears, but also watching the nonverbals of somebody else. Listening in a nonverbal is really, really rare and really, really important. More important than listening to words is listening to nonverbals, and being able to react. And you can kind of see if somebody is listening to your nonverbals. You can actually shift your body language in a conversation to lean back, to lean forward, and actually see if they adjust. If you're out on a dinner and you were to like eat faster than them or eat slower than them, do they even pick up on the nonverbal awareness of that? You can see if somebody's a nonverbal reader. So yeah, not asking questions is a red flag for you too. Yep, Tracy. Yep. Listen, the most important one, because I look for seed traits in people. A seed grows into a tree. So when you see that lack of listening, it's going to cascade to so many other things. So listening is one of the biggest ones, and it's quick to see. You say more than you
Yeah,
think.
great book. You say more than you think. Okay, about nonverbal language. Okay, I haven't heard that. Thanks, Alana, for sharing this. Yeah, I always say also that before communicating or before any kind of collaboration, we need to exchange each other's user manual. And because some people, they just don't understand, that somebody is expecting, to look into their eyes or to have certain body language, because it can be triggering for others. So this exchanging user manuals is super important also. Great. Are there any Q&A, any questions? Or would anyone like to share anything interesting that a thought that ignited after this conversation that we just had?
I'm just really resonating with so much here. I mean, I'm not certified in Enneagram, but I've been hearing about it. I am certified in other tools, but I love how tools can be used for exactly what you're talking about, Tracy. And then Jeremy, you're so speaking my language. I've spent so much time studying hypnosis, NLP, nonverbal body language, micro expressions on the face, listening, and the techniques that you're talking about that sometimes I don't even realize I'm still practicing on an unconscious way, just because I've been practicing it for such a long time. And as well as your comment about working with different people from different countries. I did a workshop one time where it was for a leadership development program where they handpicked certain people in an org to up-level them, but it depended on how they showed up and performed. And they broke them up into teams, and it was project-based. And then they had our group come in and facilitate workshops, and they had a coach with each team. And at some point, and ironically, I had people from 9 different countries in that room for the day. And at some point, they started talking about their cultural differences, and I didn't latch onto it. Instead, I brought them back up to the human level and what it is that we all have in common. And it doesn't matter what your face is shaped like, that we all have the same micro expressions and the same emotions, and those all play out in a very similar way. And the coach actually came up to me and made a comment about it. And he said, I thought that was really interesting. He's like, because most people will allow people to go deeper into their cultural differences. And I said, well, I wasn't doing it on purpose, I guess, maybe consciously, but I did it unconsciously. And I think, based on your question, I think here's why I do it. I've realized in all the years that I've been coaching since 2005 that when people start to bring up their cultural differences, it creates division. Differences create divisiveness. And the more that you acknowledge them, although it might make people feel heard on a temporary way, and I'm just going to say this too, this is where I'm seeing the danger of what's happening in the whole DEI space. The more that DEI gets stronger within organizations, I feel like it's doing more harm than good. And that we need to get back to what, Anya, you and I learned about in the Heart Math is just as human beings, we need to get back to what we all have in common, which is we all have a heart. We all have same micro expressions. We all have similar emotions. Now, how do those play out? How do those translate depending on which context you are in? And then leverage those versus using them to create difference and divisiveness and competition and, that sort of thing. So anyway, I could go on and on and on, but there's just so much here, even though it's a short, and I think we're over time already, and how that plays out. And I've got major concerns about what I'm seeing out there.
Thanks,
Alana.
Yeah,
I think we can definitely focus on more of what we do have the same than what we do have difference. And obviously, there's a lot to unpack when just one term of DEI is thrown out, and there's a lot in there. But I think there's a lot of humanists we can look into, and I think some people will go and they'll say, oh, this is just my culture, right? That's just more of like that fixed mindset. But really, like, a culture is just an aggregation of like a grouping of people together where really you can change if you want. Like, you don't need to like put yourself in a label and then keep yourself in some sort of box. Like, you're a growing and changing human. So we can just break things down to the human levels, and everybody has a different baseline too. Me with my algorithm mindset, like, you can see like smile depth of somebody in the first 5 minutes of a call versus the last 5 minutes of a call, and like you can kind of do baseline adjustments for different personalities or different cultures or whatever, and they're just averages. So even that way, you're not saying like, oh, this person's more active or inactive in a conversation based on some sort of one true baseline. It's like everybody has their own kind of custom baseline, and you can kind of make that on a per call basis. That way we're very custom and prescriptive, and not just tying to, oh, well, this culture is this way as a fixed thing. Like, everybody's outliers. Anytime you take one attribute, male, female, culture, politics, whatever, and you apply it over a large group of people, you're getting inaccuracy just by going over the large group of people, because no one trait actually lasts across that large group of people. So
half the time people don't even know what culture means. They say it, but they don't. Like, what do you mean by that? What does that mean for you or your organization or your team? And it does have impact on every level.
Yeah, as soon as one label goes across like more than 1,000 people, I'm like, it's kind of loses its usefulness. Like, it's very diluted. There's so many differences in people. So it's like, let's just talk about the person or people that we're talking about right in front of us. Let's address that specifically, and not put any sort of labels on it just because of gender or anything else, because there's so many different women, there's so many different men, there's so many different people from the US, there's so many people from different cultures. So let's deal prescriptively. So
yeah, we can definitely continue this conversation in Business Heartprints LinkedIn group. That's why it was made. Thanks for joining today, and I'll see you online or in next episode of Business Heartprints, or live somewhere. Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Anya, for
Hope to meet you again.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for